Hello everyone. Today I am going to sow two types of native plants that I have been cold stratifying in my refrigerator for a little over 30 days. I think it was the middle of July when I put them in the refrigerator. The two native plants that I am going to sow today are tall bellflower and Marsh St. John's wort. So first off, I put these in the refrigerator to cold stratify a little over a month ago. It looks like I did it on July the 16th. And so you can see what I do. I have videos about this and I'll put a card up, but what I do is I take an organic coffee filter, I make it damp, I put the seeds in, I put it in a plastic baggie, I label it, I date it, and I put it in the refrigerator for however long the particular plant needs to be cold stratified. And for definition purposes, cold moist stratification is the process whereby seeds receive an environment, a cold and moist environment for a certain amount of time in order to spark that seed to germinate. So that can be outside over the winter, or that could be artificially like I'm doing here in the refrigerator or have done in the refrigerator. So that is what cold moist stratification is. For the tall bellflower, it needs to be cold stratified for 30 days. For the Marsh St. John's wort on the Prairie Moon Nursery website, it's kind of like a question mark. They don't really know. And I had trouble with Marsh St. John's wort a couple years ago, like getting these to germinate. So I thought I would do it in a little more controlled environment this time, using the refrigerator and then also using my grow lights downstairs. So we're gonna give that a try. I really love St. John's wort, the native St. John's wort, and this particular St. John's wort has a pretty pink bloom and I have a great place for it. So I'm hoping I have some success with doing it in this more controlled environment. And then the tall bellflower is a biennial. So that means that the first year, once it germinates, it's gonna only put on all of its leafy growth and work on the roots. And then the second year is when the tall bellflower will bloom. And then once it blooms, it self-seeds and then it dies. Tall bellflower can deal with partial shade to shade, and it also likes a medium soil but can go a little dry or a little wet. What I'm going to do here is hopefully get the germination going, and then once I get a couple sets of true leaves, then I will pot them up into their own containers. I have a bunch of 5x5 Bootstrap Farmer seed trays with holes in the bottom. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wet the top with a spray bottle. I am going to sow the seeds, and sometimes the seeds, when they've been cold stratified, they're a little hard to deal with because they're very small and stuff like that. So I'll just get them in there the best I can. And then what I will likely do with both is put a layer of coarse vermiculite over top and kind of tamp it down a little bit, and then put it downstairs where I bring up my seeds under grow lights. And so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do with these two native plants. Next up is the Marsh St. John's wort, and based on its name, it can take moist and wet soil. And the Marsh St. John's wort wants a full sun. I'm not covering either one of these plants, the tall bellflower or the Marsh St. John's wort, with soil. I'm going to cover it with a coarse vermiculite, and it's only because a lot of times the smallest seeds need a little bit of light to germinate. And if you put like coarse, or if you put like grit over top or coarse vermiculite, the sun can still get in. And also, I just want to make sure my bases are covered with the Marsh St. John's wort, because how to germinate it is a little bit of an unknown. Okay, so now that those two plants are done, I want to talk to you about seeds that don't require any pre-treatment at all. So the seeds that I was talking about earlier, the tall bellflower and the Marsh St. John's wort, those are seeds that need a cold, moist stratification. Now the seeds that I want to go ahead and get started Now, here in the middle to late August, are seeds that don't require any pre-treatment at all. So they don't need cold moist stratification, they don't need to be scarred, they don't need to be soaked in water. You can just put them in dirt and they should germinate if the temperature is right. And what I'm gonna try and do is baby these guys down in my basement under grow lights and get them going, and then take them outside in a couple of weeks. I like to do this because if I can get the plants started and going and getting them leafed out and getting them to grow that root system, then when they go dormant in the winter, they're still going to be able to work on their root system all winter long, but when they emerge in the spring, they are going to be a much larger plant than if you had taken those seeds and sowed them out in flats for over the winter, and when they are waking up in the spring, they are germinating at that point, versus what I'm talking about is I am having them germinate now, letting them grow a little bit, and then when next spring comes, they're going to be a bigger plant. Of the seeds that I have that don't require any cold stratification are Culver's root, purple coneflower, prairie dropseed, lyre-leaved sage, purple-headed sneezeweed, and side oats grandma. I have some others like switchgrass and big blue stem and little blue stem. I think I might do those a little bit later, but these are the ones that I kind of want to go ahead and get started. I just ran outside to put some coarse vermiculite over top of these 5x5 seed flats, and so now I'm just going to put a little more over the purple coneflower, and I'm going to let these sit in a flood tray full of water outside. And then later today I'm going to take a lot of these things that I have been sowing and put them downstairs under the grow lights. Okay everyone, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And if this content appeals to you, please consider subscribing, liking, pressing that bell button, and I will see you again next time.